Welcome, everyone. It's Michael Dotterer, and we are live on the dot. And it is January 3rd. Happy New Year to everyone. And I am so excited. I just got off the phone with my good friend, Greg Bell. And if any of you may not recognize the name Greg Bell, he was the number one pick by the Buffalo Bills back in 1983, I think 83 or 84. And he went to Notre Dame, and he's having a big Super Bowl party in Los Angeles, and it's amazing. He's combining art with with sports, and there's going to be, I guess, Jay-Z is going to be there, Mary J. Blige, Kendrick Lamar, Eminem, Snoop Dogg, and we're going to be putting together a great party with some amazing artists. Some of the artists, Justin Ferrano. Many of you may have heard of Justin Ferrano, Kathleen Kiefer, GBG. GBG is a famous artist from Korea, and Taki Gold. They're going to all be there painting. So get ready. We're going to talk more about that later. And I'm so excited today. You can probably see I'm shaking because I have been waiting for 7 years to introduce this amazing mentor of mine, friend, confidant. I've known him for 30 years. I wouldn't be in the place I'm in right now if it weren't for him. And I owe so much to him because it was 7 years ago that he said, Michael, do you know yourself? And I remember looking at him with this quizzical look saying, what are you talking about? I don't understand what that means. So without further ado, this is one of the most exciting times in the last 10 years for me because we are launching Zodian. And this is, you can see in the background here, this is the Zodian.com site. And I'm bringing on the founder, the inventor of Zodian to tell you and share with all of you the exciting news about the Zodian launch. So without further ado, Mr. Alex von Allmen, how are you, brother?
Great. Can you hear me okay?
You're coming in loud and clear.
Oh, thanks, Michael, for having me. It's been a long journey, but I believe that we're at the beginning of it with Zodian, and I'm really excited to be here. And what I thought I'd do is spend a little time telling me how Zodian came about, telling you guys how Zodian came about, what inspired me to develop it, and then also maybe where it's going. So, yeah.
Well, look who
we've got our good friend Trudy Stoner on the line.
Alex, can you, because Trudy also is part of our Zodian team, a critical component. Trudy, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to On the Dot. And Trudy, Alex, I just introduced Alex. Alex, could you introduce Trudy?
Yes, Trudy is an amazing life coach, and she specializes in helping people navigate their relationships, and she serves both men and women. And I've gotten to know Trudy over the last few years, and she has been excited about what we've been doing with Zodian. And she knows the coaching business really well, what coaches really need and want. And so I was ecstatic to make her part of this team. So thank you, Trudy, for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for that introduction.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I've been fascinated with temperaments for a long time now. And temperaments are nothing more than habits or preferences that people have. And a really good example of that would be if you're left-handed or right-handed. And some people prefer to write with their right hand, and they'll use their left hand. It doesn't mean they can't write left-handed, but it doesn't look nearly as good because they're very comfortable with it. And so, there's actually a debate on whether that's genetic or learned, but most of it's genetic, quite frankly. And if you look at the general population, there are 90% of people are right-handed and 10% are left-handed, and there's a small group of people that are ambidextrous. And I always love talking to those people because they have an interesting story. It's like,
that's me, Alex.
oh my gosh.
I
Well,
write with my left hand.
Mm-hmm.
On the chalkboard, I write with my right hand. I throw right, and I eat left. I mean, I'm definitely ambidextrous. But anyway, just want to throw that in there.
Yeah, and so years ago, I was curious why people didn't see the world the way I saw the world, and it was baffling to me. I'd see something, and then, can't you see this? And and you might ask, in today's world, it's even more exacerbated. It's like, why are you a conservative Republican or liberal Democrat? Those are the conversations that we're having in today's world. And we tend to go to our tribe, and we tend not to really understand, the people that we're with. And I used to be in telecom, and they had this term called the last mile. And the last mile was the cable that came to your house. And that was the most critical mile, because if that wasn't a good cable, you wouldn't get your television shows or things like that. And so really, in my mind, the last mile of communication is the 6 inches between your ears. So you might get a posting on social media, on Facebook, and you might, oh yeah, I totally agree with this, or oh, totally disagree with that. And really, what I love about Zodian is it allows you to put yourself in an empathic point of place where you can really understand, where someone is coming from. When you do that, it's amazing what happens. It's magical, because you start really getting people for where they're coming. And many times they have very legitimate concerns. We have today, we have people that are vaxxers and anti-vaxxers. You have people that, are on all sides of the spectrum. And what I believe Zodian allows you to do is to facilitate that communication, navigate those personal relationships. Now, and maybe Trudy, I don't know if you want to jump in and talk a little bit about that. You're welcome to. You're the relationship person.
Yeah, I was going to say, as far as relationships go, when you and I first met and you introduced me to Zodian, my first instant response was, oh my God, what a tool. What a tool. And I think I even said to you, I'm never going on another date again unless I give the person the survey, because I really wanted to, I thought it was like a shortcut, like sort of a, being on the inner circle, like having information that would take such a long time to learn organically. It was like, I want to learn these things. And it was fun. It's a conversation starter. It's fun. It's playful. It's interesting. And when you can look at things like how you've put together, that these are really compatible matches. Of course, we're not saying relationships can't work without that compatibility match. They can, of course, but like you said, it gives you more insight, more patience, more understanding, more empathy, more compassion for your partner when you have a better understanding of how they show up in the world. So I'm just thrilled with it.
And can I just add, I think, and this is just throwing out, this is a little gem that I've just discovered in my 7 years of running around. I think, Trudy, women have an intuitive sense of Myers-Briggs. And there are a lot of women that I've shared this with that have kind of basically said, I already know this. And it doesn't really interest them. And whereas a man, and I know I'm generalizing, but I would say 80% of men have no idea of who they are, no clue. And I was one of them. And I still am just at the beginning step. I'm still learning. Obviously, we always continue to learn. about ourselves. But what would you say about that, Trudy? Because I think women, this is one of the things that I want to do, and for all of my lawyer friends out there, I believe Zodian is going to help put the divorce industry out of business. Trudy, go ahead and talk about that.
Well, I think that when you say that a woman might say, I already know that, maybe she's talking about herself. I can tell you from coaching hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of women that there's no way we can say we know that about the man that we're dating. And if we do know it, then shame on us, because we're ignoring a whole lot. I mean, talk about red flags and clarity. If we knew that, I think we'd make a whole lot of better decisions. But we don't know that. And we have a sense for ourselves about ourselves, of course. And I think that that's probably what they're talking about. Like, oh, I already know that. But when it comes to a partner, we don't already know that. You can't know that. And then the other part too is that in the beginning, and I see this all the time, men and women both do this. You meet someone, you show up, and then you decide, this is the person I want to project. This is the person I really want to be. This is who I really, you start to chameleon a little bit. It's like, oh, they said they really want someone that reads. Ooh, I'm going to present as a reader, when maybe you haven't picked up a book in 5 years. Like, we tend to do that in the very beginning. And then that's why it takes a lot of time in a partnership to really get to know someone. And you go, wow, in the beginning, he was just like this. He was all those things I wanted. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, a year later, it's like, maybe this is who he really is. And that was like a hook, the bait and switch. And not that people are doing it like on purpose, or it's not like this big diabolical scheme. It's just human nature. We put our best foot forward. And so I think with Zodian, when we can get some insight on a true personality assessment, on like, and then to ask that person, do you agree with that assessment? Do you feel like that fits? Does that resonate? Does that seem like you? And if they're like, oh my God, this is totally me, there you go. It's like, whoo, you just jumped ahead 25 steps.
Yeah, thank you, Trudy.
Like ending divorce, I think that compassion and empathy and understanding is helpful. And I think that used in conjunction with a good therapist or a coach, if your marriage was in trouble, having that insight would be powerful, but it'd be a tool to use in conjunction with some other stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Michael, the divorce industry is so freaking big that it's going to take more than Zodian to fix that.
Just to let everyone know, my mother was married 3 times, my father 3 times, my sister twice, and me once. So among 4 people, 9 marriages. So I have some examples to have looked at, and I know that Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates are going through some. I think it's probably going to take them maybe decades to go through all the divorce papers. But there's I think a documentary, Trudy and Alex, called Divorce Inc. INC. Divorce Inc. It's a huge industry. And all I'm saying is that I want to thank Alex and you, Trudy, who have helped thousands of people and just what you're doing. I want to thank you and know that Zodian, in my opinion, can help us all get along so that we can sing Kumbaya. And if we do end up parting, it's not going to be acrimonious. It's going to be a pleasant parting, because if we can get along in our relationships, our personal relationships, that will reverberate and will affect our beautiful world. So that's all I have to say. Yeah.
So I wanted to add to that, Michael, a little bit. Is I was at a workshop one time, and the facilitator asked a trick question and said, well, what's the most important relationship that you are dealing with? And some people might say, well, it's a relationship with my spouse or with my kids, or maybe it's a relationship I have with my God or whatever. And the answer that she was looking for, and it made a lot of sense, is the relationship you have with yourself. And so one of the things I love about Zodian, and I love this about other psychological assessments too, I think Zodian makes it easier, but it's really a good way to start learning about who you are. And by taking this assessment, it's a journey. It's a journey of self-knowledge, self-realization, self-actualization. This is so once you know who you are and you're comfortable with it, and that's a big thing because you have a whole world of people telling you that you need to be more like this, and there may be some truth to that. But the fact is that every style has amazingly successful people. I look at it and they are here are their preferences, and they've contributed to the world in amazing ways.
Mhm.
And so there is no one style that is important. And so that was what got me into this. And I had looked at a number of personality types and segments. I was always intrigued by it because my core profession is I'm a marketer, and marketers are into segmentation. We really want to understand the similarities and differences within people. And so Zodian, their preferences, their go-tos. Some people have really strong preferences on an attribute, and some people not so much. And so um, one of the things I discovered, and by the way, I mean, this might be one of the most important things you do. Um, I use this a similar kind of technique in corporate America, and at the time, just to let you know, the business application, we were losing subscribers. I worked for a wireless telephone company, and people would be funneled if they wanted to cancel to a customer service rep who would, go ahead and do the cancellation. And we started using people that were more psychologically, um, I'm going to say, or temperament wise, they were better at saving the customers. The average customer service rep saved maybe 5 to 8% of the cancellations. The save team, on the other hand, they were wired differently. They were more go with the flow and persuasive, and they saved over 70% of the callers that came in. That ended up being translating to millions of dollars for the division. So that was one of the things that really helped me understand here's the power of knowing how people are wired that way. And then in relationships, I was, um, I had a dating experience, when I was in college, and it was hard to connect with, people for me. And I realized I'm not a typical personality type. I'm a small percentage of the population, maybe 2%. I ended up marrying a woman that was a pretty good compliment for me in a lot of ways. And in fact, it was so funny because I read the literature and they said, yeah, this is a suggested match. And, we were married for a long time. And then when I joined the dating world about 10 years ago, it made dating really fun for me because I joke I'm kind of like Jane Goodall or Diane Fossey, out in the wild, and I'd meet people and I'd get to know them, and like I could just take the pressure off. It's like here, oh wow, this person kind of has these preferences, and I knew in advance that certain preferences would lead to really you know um, better outcomes on the relationship and better friendships, and that's been the case. Michael, are you still there? This
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I've been wanting to say for a few minutes here. I think we should start with Trudy because Trudy, obviously, ladies first, and she is brilliant. And I encourage everyone to go to her website. Trudy, what is your website if people want to go there?
It's just trudystoner.com.
Trudy Stoner, and everyone. Yep, there we go. STONER.
Oh, you'll never forget that.
Exactly. especially since I've been in the last couple of years, I've been affiliated with this company, Club Nirvana.
Mhm.
Club Nirvana. So if you want to go, yeah, Club Nirvana. But hey, Trudy, why don't we start with you real quick? Because Alex's genius was to come up with an easy way to remember your Myers-Briggs. There are a lot of people out there that have taken the survey. It's been around since the 1930s. A mother-daughter team came up with the survey, and corporate America and companies all over the world embraced it. But a lot of people, when they take the exam or the survey, I don't call it a test, it's a survey, they don't remember the letters. So in Alex's genius, he said, well, let's come up with an archetype. And so Trudy, can you take it from there and share with everyone your archetype and what it's meant for you? And then Alex, you're next, and then maybe I could talk to later.
Well, according to Alex, I'm an odd bird. I am a dove, which really resonated with me, and I'm also a phoenix. So he calls me a dovenix. And I don't think that's very common, but I certainly loved it. I resonate with both. And when I read the descriptions about both, I think, oh yeah, that's me and that's me. And it's been really fun. And we have nicknames and people that I've given the survey to. It's like, well, Alex will call me and say, hey, Chico Dove. And it's just fun. It's fun, and it opens so many lines of communication. But what I want to do is have Alex explain to people what a Dovenix is.
Well, I'll tell you, that's a difficult one because phoenixes are exceptionally rare. They're 1% of the population, and doves are equally pretty rare as well, a little more common, but when you put the two together, which is a really great thing. A lot of people look at an assessment. This is a great thought here, is that, and they say, well, I've got to fit in this exact category. And we try to do that. Most people will gravitate towards a particular set of preferences. And then occasionally there will be someone that is, on the cusp between two preferences. And that's neither good nor bad. It's a way of really understanding, who you are. It's part of your uniqueness. One of the things I'm very excited about is that there's a Jungian analyst named John Beebe, Dr. John Beebe. He's a brilliant man who came up with the idea of functions. He says, you kind of look at a person and they have an energy signature, and they lead with either a decision function or an information gathering function. And then they follow it up with either an info gathering or decision function. And so, what's interesting about both a dove and a phoenix in Trudy's case is that they are highly intuitive, which means they're good at pattern recognition. They're good at seeing, especially relationships between people. And so I think Trudy, being a relationship coach, is very aptly, matched with what she does. And both are feelers. And a dove is generally internal feeler. They have a very strong sense of identity. And a phoenix is an external feeler, which is they are very sensitive to their markets and to the people and audiences around them. And what I find really fun and cool is that we all start with maybe 2 or 3 key energies that are our go-tos. But when you become aware of the other energies, you can start to develop them. It doesn't mean you're going to be a master at it, but you can go in and say, wow, I've been a strong internal feeler and no one knows what I'm feeling, So you get better at expressing your deeper feelings to people. And or I'm like a seek closure kind of person. I can't stand when I don't have closure on something. and then you become a little more aware. Well, maybe I don't need closure on everything. Maybe I can keep or hold something a little loosely. Or conversely, if you're a go with the flow kind of person like Michael and I are, well, maybe we can do a little better. We can write to-do lists and calendars and keep appointments and things like that. That's so you end up growing in different areas, or at least you become sensitive to them. And I think that's a great thing. Um,
Well,
well,
Alex,
yeah,
Alex, so Trudy is a dove nix, which is a combination dove and phoenix. Can you share with everyone your zodiac?
sure. I'm mostly a griffin, and a griffin in ancient mythology is a mythological animal that has the head of an eagle and the body of a lion, and it's a flying bird. And I I I never really knew a lot about griffins until I went in and I meditated to create these styles. And what I loved about griffins is that they're curious. Griffins are, looking at the external world, and they have no problem going into the vortex and discovering something new and bringing it into this world or manifesting it into the real world. And some of my very favorite griffins are people like Walt Disney. He might be a flying horse, but I'll claim him in my tribe. Stan Lee, the founder of Marvel Comics, and he wasn't. He was so significant in terms of that. Benjamin Franklin's another one. Leonardo da Vinci, and so they became my mentors. I read their biographies, and I understood better, what my life purpose might be, and I by resonating with these griffins, I got to tell you, Walt Disney's biography is extremely inspiring.
Mhm.
But to someone else, let's say someone that comes from more grounded style, in the earth, which are fine, they're going
By the way,
to.
just let everyone know, Alex's mother and my mother are both horses. And if you're just tuning in somewhere, you might be thinking, boy, these people are crazy. What are they talking about? Horses and octopuses and griffins and dove nixes. We're not crazy. These used to be Myers-Briggs. It was letters. So Alex's letters is ENTP. Most people forget those letters, but they will not forget Griffin, the flying lion. And most people will forget a dove, which is a INFP, or a phoenix, which is an INFJ, but they will not forget a dove nix like Trudy. And as far as my zodiac, I'm a Pegasus. I'm a flying horse a la Pegasus, which is an ENFP. So, Alex, I just wanted to
Well,
interject.
yeah, and so one of the things that hit me is, assessments like the Myers-Briggs are given out millions of times a year, and they've been given out. And when I've gone out in the wild and I've asked people, "Do you remember your Myers-Briggs?" 9 out of 10 times they're going to tell me, "Yeah, I'm an IETF something." They don't remember their Myers-Briggs. And there's a reason why. As a branding guy, I understood the reason why, which is initials are abstract. Our human minds aren't really able to absorb an initial very well. That brand names that are our initial brands. Gosh, there was a company, I met the founder years ago, and his company was called NBI. And and we asked him at the end of the presentation, well, what does NBI stand for? And he goes, oh, nothing but initials. And so people just don't remember initials very well. And so, but here was the big insight. This was the big aha. There were a couple big ahas. One is almost everyone I know remembers their astrological sign. You know, they go, I'm an Aries or I'm a Pisces or whatever. And I go, wow, why is it you remember something like that, which is almost just pure entertainment in my mind, versus something that could really make a difference in your life, which, you know, the Myers-Briggs.
That's based on psychology, which is people get their PhD in psychology. I don't know if Stanford or Northwestern or at Harvard or at Oxford, I don't think they have a PhD in astrology. And that's not to say that astrology isn't interesting. I'm a Sagittarius, and I've really enjoyed studying the little that I know. And people have said, hey, I can do your charts, but I've never met someone that got their PhD in astrology. But I do know many of my friends from Stanford, Columbia, the University of London, that's psychology. And Trudy, would you like to interject here? Because, you know, I believe we're moving into the age of the Wonder Woman, and you're a Wonder Woman. Could you just add to this conversation a little bit, please?
Well, I think Alex is spot on. I think that it's what we remember, right? We don't. I mean, in fact, I'm sitting here going, okay, INFP, INFJ, is that right? I mean, I have spent hours on the phone with Alex, like asking him questions because I'm so intrigued. I want to know more. I want to go deeper. I want to understand it. Well, what does that mean to be like an internal feeler versus an external feeler? I really wanted to know because it wasn't what I just immediately assumed. And to speak to what Alex was talking about with this memory thing, I think I've probably taken like either Myers-Briggs or some sort of assessment at least 5 times in my lifetime through various jobs or job searches or curiosity, at least 5 times. And if you asked me what I was, I couldn't tell you to save my life. I have absolutely no idea. But when he introduced me to Zodian and I went on there and I did the quick test, the 5 questions, and I immediately came back a dove, I was over the moon. Oh my God, that's my spirit animal. I love doves. You know, I connected the dots all over the place, even before I knew what it meant. But then it made me want to dive deeper and learn what it meant. And I want to circle back to the relationship part, because that's, I think, my little piece of this puzzle, is I really believe that when we can see that, and it opens the channel for communication. If I were to start dating and I said, would you take this assessment? This is really fun. My friend created this. And then I can look at the results and share my results, and we can open a line of communication that says, does that resonate? What do you think? I don't know anybody that has ever done that with a Myers-Briggs.
Yeah.
It makes it fun.
It does. It makes it fun, and the whole idea in design, which is part of my core, I guess, strength or whatever, is there's something called user experience, and so our goal, or let's say the goal with Zodian, was to create a new form of astrology, something where you could remember what your style was and you could start to get to know it better. And so I didn't know this, but this was about a few years back. I learned that in traditional astrology, you have earth, water, fire, and air elements. And to me, that was really interesting. I didn't know that about traditional astrology. And I came home and I asked myself a question. And the question was, could Myers-Briggs correlate to the 4 elements of the ancient world? Could there be a water or earth or whatever personalities? And it came back so quickly. You know, to me, this is, of course it can. To give you an idea, Earth is people that are in the Earth kingdom. They tend to live in the real world. They're sensors. They tend to process the real world through their 5 senses. Or, you know, can I touch it? Can I smell it? Can I taste it? They're much more likely to see the tree and maybe miss the forest. They're pragmatic about things. They look at things And if it, the other thing is they want closure in general. So you take someone that is pragmatic and someone that wants closure, it's going to feel tight. And Earth Kingdom people are amazing community builders. They are the ones that are really the bedrock of our country. They're 45% of the population, and they tend to be fairly structured and fairly tight, and they tend to value traditions and family and good citizenship. Whereas someone that is more go with the flow, let's say they're more practical, but they're go with the flow. They are they live in the real world, is what I like to call it. That feels a lot like water to me. They are still part of this earth, and they are go with the flow. And so they become the artisans of the world. They're the builders, people that are contractors and construction people, and they build things. Or they might be the musicians, or they might be the people that repair things. They put together IT networks or whatever. And so, they're part of, and they're about 35% of the population. And then you run into the fires, and fires are the intuitive feelers of the world. They live in a passionate environment. They gravitate towards causes and making the world a better place. And they, at some level, are more idealistic. And um, and so Michael and Trudy are both fire signs. So, Michael used to work for the United Nations. It was about, can we all live and have peace together?
Kumbaya, kumbaya.
Yeah, kumbaya. And then you have like the last but not least, you have the air signs, and airs tend to be more intuitive. That means big picture view of things. We tend to miss the tree. We'll run into the tree. I'm one of those. And we tend to be more rational. I'm going to say more thinker. We tend to look at numbers and analysis and things like that. And, we're kind of above it all. We like being at the 10 to 20,000 foot level and looking down and, oh, that's interesting. Look at that. And so, we annoy some of our Earth friends because they go, "Come on, down to Earth, Alex, come on, Oz, or whatever my nickname is sometimes." And so,
Griff. We call you Griff.
Griff, come on, get down. But knowing my style has really given me empathy and appreciation for the balance that you get, because great organizations and great relationships are often balanced. It's a combination of how the energies work together. And so that was, astrology was the initial inspiration. The fact that there were elements, I didn't know that. And then to let you guys know a little bit about the processes, once I found out that I could take certain major styles and put them into elements like earth, water, fire, and air. The next question is, could I create animals that related to those particular styles? And that, I like to joke, I meditated my ass off on that one. I sat down and really thought about which animal embodied the spirit and the temperament of the style. And I will tell you that the first dozen came very quickly. It's like, oh, an INTP, that's a really smart intellectual person, and like an Albert Einstein. And of course it's an air, so it's going to be an owl. It's going to be an owl, It can't not be an owl, And then, but there were a few that were challenging for me, and I'd say the final four. One of the big revelations was coming up with the idea they don't have to be real animals. They weren't real animals for astrology. You have Capricorns and Sagittarius and things like that. Well, let's look at the mythic animals, like dragon or phoenix or griffin. And so that became really intuitively obvious once you open your mind to like a mythological animal, and it's my system, so I get to be a griffin. It's my party, but the um, uh, but that made a lot of sense. And then there were a couple that were really I struggle with. One is it's now the orca. Originally looked at the shark. Orcas are amazingly successful in a lot of ways, and sharks are alpha predators. But there's one animal that is an apex predator above and beyond a shark, and that's an orca. And I love the story behind it because when an orca pod comes into an area like the Farallon Islands, they will go and they'll knock the shark upside down, and they will eat the liver of that shark. And the sharks they're not afraid of anybody except orcas. When an orca comes in, they dive. They get out of there. They go to 700 feet. And orcas, I think of some great presidents that have been orcas, like FDR or Teddy Roosevelt. Winston Churchill was probably an orca. Great.
Alex, let me read to some people orcas: Madonna, Jack Nicholson, Ernest Hemingway, Eddie Murphy, Lucille Ball. There you go. Those are orcas.
Yeah. Another one that gave me a little bit of a challenge, this is probably the hardest one, was in Myers-Briggs. It's an ISFP, introverted, feeler, sensor, perceiver. They tend to be very artistic. And some of the most famous pop musicians are in this particular style, like Michael Jackson or Justin Timberlake, are Lady Gaga are among these styles of people.
Mozart
May have been, yeah. And by the way, there are a few geeks out there that we speculate on, on what someone was. Normally, we normally agree, which is really interesting, on the board.
Well, you know what is amazing? I don't think the 7 years that you've been teaching me you're my mentor, Alex. I don't think we've ever come across a Dovenix.
No, we have not.
So Trudy, we've created a whole new category, the Dovenix.
Well, I felt Trudy's vibe originally, and it did feel like a dove to me. But because she's such a good coach, she's always interpreting for people. The Phoenix is a counselor style. I will say a ton of marriage and family therapists and coaches are that style. And so it was really interesting because and also I want to just go back to it. You don't have to stay in one category. It is fluid. It is. Most people will stay in a category, and I don't think that the vehicle or the assessment's wrong. It just means that you're growing and changing and building, as you go through life. You become a different version.
I will say this though. Here's just a little side note, because and actually this is a good way to segue, because we're running up into the 45-minute mark, and I've been told that people's attention span is about 45 minutes. So we could go on and on. We could talk for hours and hours. But what I will say that we have in Zodian, when you go to Zodian, and I'm gonna pass it on to Trudy, because Alex, I'd like Trudy to introduce the exciting launch of what we're doing here, because she can do it in a much more grace than you and I can, in my opinion. But
no pressure.
Yes, no pressure. Just she's going to introduce what is this Zodian launch. But I will say this: I am a 78% feeler. Alex, I don't know if I can move that feeler over to thinker where you are. I mean, I try to. I mean, I've signed up with QuickBooks and Quicken, and
well, it's not about moving, that it's about pairing up with people that complement you, because it takes a village, and as a feeler, you're much more attuned to things than I am. You know, I lean thinking.
Well, as you said, Alex, and I credit you again. I mentioned superpowers. Everyone out there listening, every single human being on this planet has their own unique superpower. So with that, I'm going to put the masking tape on, and I'm going to hand it off to Trudy, and she's going to get the whole screen to talk about the launch. And then Alex, you can add, but I'm finished. Trudy gets the last word, and Alex, you can have the last word too. But Trudy, you're on. Take it away, Trudy.
Oh my. Well, I think that that's huge, percent for feeler. I think that when you're on the borderline, sometimes that's where, and I know that this is where I fluctuate, between, because I can be so close in a couple of things, and it really kind of depends. Where is my mindset? That's important. So Zodian.com. If you want to find out what you are, then I encourage you to go to Zodian.com and take a look around. And there is a free, just a 5-question quiz, and it's going to give you your Zodian. And then you have the opportunity with launch. We're opening it up. We're making it bigger, and we're making it so that more people have access to this. So you can do a one-time, more extended version, and you're going to get a copy of an ebook that's going to help you understand this a little bit more. You're also going to get a digital copy, a PDF copy of your Zodian sign. So I have my dove, and Alex has his griffin, and Dot, I don't know if you have a Pegasus. If you don't, we need to get you one. You can do whatever you want to with it. And mine's framed. Alex is framed. Actually, mine was a gift from Alex. Thank you. But you can do that too. And you can do that with your friends. Make this fun and get curious. Get really curious and visit Zodian.com. And then if you just love it so much you can't hardly stand it, then you can do Personal Plus, and you can actually subscribe, and you can get multiple surveys to share with people. Share with your friends, share with your family, and more importantly to me, share with those that you're interested in dating, and give yourself a nice little shortcut. So there's that, Dot. Alex, you have anything you want to add?
Oh, that was great. So just to recap, we've got a free survey, which is 5 questions. We have an advanced assessment, which allows you to go in and see your percentage preferences on things. And when you do that, it comes with a preliminary version of our book that we're publishing. It also comes with your a digital file that you can put on stationery, or you can put it on your email signature. I have it on my stationery, and it looks like $1 million. You don't have to be a king or queen or of noble birth to be part of our tribes. And then the shared plan, you can give it to your friends and family and coworkers. And we also have a professional version, which is designed for coaches and therapists and hiring managers. And it can be a white label version where you can actually stick it on your website and drive people to that survey. And it's your choice whether you share the Zodian type with the surveyor. Sometimes you might want to do that. Sometimes you don't. That's, by the way, one of the big reasons a lot of people don't know their Myers-Briggs is they're used by employers to find the right style. And employers are a little reluctant to share. I personally would love to share that. If someone, I said, here's something that might be of value to you in your life. So anyway, there we go. Zodian.com. And I was up late last night, like getting some final touches on this. So there may be a few bugs, just want you to know that, but they're being resolved very quickly. So have some patience, and our contact information will be on the site at Zodian.com, and you can send me an email, call me if you have other ideas, regarding it. So thank you. Michael, thank you very much for having both of us on.
Yes,
on the
thank
dot.
you, Michael.